specially invited guest and give that individual a warm, warm Barbados Labour Party red welcome. Sir Frederick Sleepy Smith.
Founding Democratic Labour Party Chairman Sir Frederick Sleepy Smith gave us some important advice in 2008. Listen to the 2008 advice of the DLP's founding chairman.
And if at the end of 5 years they don't add up to what you suspect they should be or what they ought to be, kick them out.
We've lost 16,000 private sector jobs since 2008.
Kick them out.
Our bills and our groceries are much more expensive than they were when the DLP took over power. Cost of living is up 30%.
Kick them out.
The national debt has almost doubled and our bonds have been reduced to junk.
Kick them out.
The former Democratic Labour Party chairman did not stop there. He had more advice for us back in 2008.
If you give the DLP a chance to be government of this country and they do not add up to what you thought they ought to be or what you expect them to be, then you have a right to kick them out after 5, not after 14.
On election day, take the DLP's advice.
Kick them out.
Thank you, Sir Frederick. Thank you very much, Sir Frederick. Are we going to kick them out? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because Sir Frederick said kick them out if they don't do God. But if we can kick them out, it means you're going to bring in somebody. And that body will be that body. Can't hear you, that body. Owen. That is the master, ladies and gentlemen, but he will not be able to do it on his own. He's going to need some good, strong, certain help. And that help will come too. That help will come. That help will come with Dale Marshall. Dale Marshall.
We do not
Dale
want
Marshall.
them.
Dale Marshall,
Them
ladies
again.
and gentlemen.
Tell me what you want. Bring the change. Barbados Labour Party. Tell me what you want. BLP. Tell me what you want. BLP. Tell me what you want. BLP. Louder. BLP. Louder. BLP. New government.
We done with them. We want BLP. Let's rebuild this economy. More jobs and
I could try my hand at singing. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. And if I was like Lil Rick, I would say, we done with them, we no want no more of them. But I don't have a lot of talent in the singing arena. And I am here tonight not to sing, but to speak with you about the very serious issues that face this country and about the very serious issues that require examination in this campaign. You are not going to hear any serious issues from the Dems. They've already had a few meetings, and they are obsessed with the fact that we went to pay our nominations in an air-conditioned bus. That is the most important thing that they have noticed about our campaign, that the bus was air-conditioned. Well, once again, you know, Donville quarreled because he thought we went to eat his share of food at Parliament. And now they're quarreling about the bus. Well, next election, maybe we will go by something else. I believe I could find a donkey cart or two. If they want us to walk, well, maybe we will walk. But the one thing we can be sure about is that we will win. They're asking where our money comes from. I don't know that that is any of their business. I subscribe I subscribe to the view that if you take care of the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. So we have to tell Frandel that he must not mind where ours is coming from. He must tell us where he is getting his. Already this campaign, having only just started, has begun to descend into, I don't know what to call it. In all of our years, I don't believe we have seen a campaign that has descended into the gutter so fast. On this very site, they chose to hurl the worst of insults at our respectable candidates. Just yesterday, they vandalized a billboard in St. Philip. And I understand from Mr. Indawe that they went so far as to defecate on it. Do you know that George Payne's phone lines were cut last night? What next? In a country where people are suffering, in a country where people are daily feeling a burden that they're not sure they can continue to bear, this is where our campaign has been forced. This is what has been happening in only the last few days. Mark my words, it will get worse. And I want you to brace yourselves, because in order to emerge at the other side of this fire, we must be strong as a team and as a political party. We are in the constituency of Barbados' finest put-down artists. When you hear Frandel Stewart call the name of every Barbados Labour Party member of parliament, he says, Duguid only come parliament to eat snacks. Donville quarreling about who come parliament to eat food. He talks about Owen Arthur not coming. You know, they're focused on all kinds of things except what affects the Barbadian people. 5 years ago, 5 years and 3 weeks, the Democratic Labour Party came to this country and they said, I want you to go on a journey with me. That's what Frandel and David and all of them said. We want you to go on a journey with us. They said that this journey would lead Barbados to prosperity. They said that this journey was a pathway to progress. It would lead us to good governance. It would lead us to a place where we would then have a participatory democracy. It would put people first. It would empower our youth. It would cut the cost of living. Barbados would be completely transformed. Police and nurses were going to get duty-free cars, and the streets were going to be paved with gold. Look around Barbados and tell me if you see any of these things that were contained in that invitation. The invitation was called Pathways to Progress. But instead of a pathway to progress and prosperity, we have been put on a road to perdition and on a road to ruin. Now, as a country, Barbados accepted the Dems invitation. And you know, in the Barbados Labour Party, we accept that we have been chastened by the people. And we have used the intervening 5 years to renew our strength so that we could come again to the people of this nation and tell them what can be in store for them. I'm sure that you remember that we used to be a can-do nation. We felt that Barbados could do anything. But now we're being told we can't do anything. It is the international recession. We went from being a nation that can punch over its weight, as Kofi Annan said, to being a nation now that is the laughing stock of the Caribbean. You know, there was a time when we used to refer to islands like St. Vincent and St. Lucia and so on, low islands. I'm sure you remember those days. And we used to make sport at being a Vinci and being a Lucian and all those things. But now, in the last 5 years, we have gone from being the most successful country in the region, from having pride of place in the developing world, to now being a laughing stock. Isn't it strange that every time the Democratic Labour Party comes to power, that is what happens to beautiful Barbados? We have been brought low. The DLP has done this fair country wrong. And you know, they've tried to delay this fateful day. Like a guilty man hoping every day that his trial will get adjourned. Because every day it got adjourned, it'll be one more day of freedom. And Frandl and his band of brothers were hoping that this day would never come. But the day is here now. The day of reckoning is upon them. To use a biblical term, they will be weighed in the balance and found wanting. So when we say that we are here to address serious issues, it is because this election is not about making mock sport. It is not about seeing how many fancy songs you could have. This election is a referendum on the dismal performance of the Democratic Labour Party. You know, they spent the last 5 years cursing the bees. We didn't do this, we didn't do that. They have now had 5 solid years to prove themselves, and all that has happened is that they have proven themselves not to have been worth your precious vote. That is all that they've proven. So what are they charged with? They are charged with breaking every single manifesto promise that they made to the people of this country when they talked about pathways to progress. And in the first part of our campaign, you will notice that we are focusing on what they either did or did not do. And in the second half of our campaign, we will be talking about where we intend to lead Barbados. But tonight, the spotlight has to be on the neglect of the Democratic Labour Party. And we charge them with neglecting the affairs of the people of Barbados. They said that they were going to have a participatory democracy. They wanted to give citizens the opportunity to get involved in government. And they launched something called a constituency council. And we've spoken about this time and time and time again, but it bears repeating. Because it is a demonstration not only of how they have failed in their manifesto promises, but how they're using constituency councils as a naked method of showing up their flagging political fortunes. In my constituency at Christmas time, my opponent, who is not a member of the council, was handing out vouchers, asking people, vote for me when the election comes. That is what they have reduced democracy in Barbados to. It would have been better for them to have used taxpayers' dollars to repair the roads that need repairing. It would have been better for them to use taxpayers' dollars to fix the hundreds and hundreds of Thomas houses that are shackling out and falling apart. But instead, they're using constituency councils to shore up the fortunes of their failing and losing candidates. They said that they were going to bring us a responsive government. Cynthia Ford quakes every time she thinks about this because they have put on people of Barbados summer camps. Summer camps that have killed the volunteer spirit of Barbadians. But yet still they claim that they want to be responsive. And perhaps the most grievous failure on their part is the claim that they were going to be transparent. If you look at their manifesto pathways to progress, you would see that they said they would be transparent in all decision making. And they went on to commit that they were going to publish the details of all government contracts and all contracts with government agencies. That's what they said. We are going to publish the details of all government contracts and all contracts with government agencies. The Democratic Labour Party is guilty of failing on this particular commitment. Have any of you seen the details of the contract between the National Housing Corporation and Jada Construction to build 1,000 houses in Coverley? That is a big state secret. That is a state secret. And if they didn't give you the details of that, you can be quite sure that they will not give you the details of the 2,000 houses that Jada is going to be building at Bushy Park. I laughed when I saw what Lashley said, the Minister of Housing. We will now be awarding another contract for 2,000 houses at Bushy Park to be called the Villages at Bushy Park. And the villages at Coverley hardly selling. We want to see the details of that contract. We want to see the details of the contract with the Water Authority to build its new headquarters building. We want to see the details of the contract for the new Bell pumping station. But the Minister of Housing could, on this location, on this very location, say to the people of Barbados that they are going to do an inquiry into the construction of the building in Warrens that was built by Al Barak. Can you imagine that on the eve of an election, days before they are ready to demit office, as sure as they will, they are now going to promise an inquiry into the Barrack building? Why would they not have done it on day one? You know, one of the worst things about being a parliamentarian is that the Democratic Labour Party, one of the worst things about being a BLP parliamentarian is that the Democratic Labour Party tries their best to besmirch our characters. Do you remember before the last election they talked about how all of our cabinet ministers had overseas accounts? Remember they said that they were going to do a forensic audit on all of us? Isn't it funny that the only forensic audit to have been done in Barbados is the CLICO forensic audit that has turned up the affairs of David Thompson and Leroy Paris and $3.3 million in legal fees that were never worked for. They say God don't sleep. God don't sleep. You see, they were promising forensic audits about us and alleging that we were corrupt. That's what they were saying. And every day we go to Parliament with a shadow over our heads. And they wait until the end of a term to talk about an inquiry into the Barrack building. But tell them to investigate it. You don't have to do an inquiry. They have the files, they have the documents. If you are so sure that my good friend George Payne did something wrong, you don't have to have an inquiry. Call the FBI. That's right, Lisa. Call the police. Carry the files down to Independence Square and say to the people of Barbados, come and look at them. We are confident that at no time did any of our members of Parliament engage in any misconduct in relation to any of the projects that we did. You know, they alleged misconduct in the prison in relation to the new prison. But yet still, Frondell Stewart could go and say, what a wonderful building it is. What a wonderful building it is. They alleged misconduct in the new Supreme Court building. But Frondell Stewart was the first to make sure that his name went on the building. If there was misconduct associated with the building, do you think that I would let Dale Marshall's name be put on it? Not me. But if you're going to the Supreme Court, you would see a beautiful plaque opened by the Honorable Frondell Stewart, Prime Minister of Barbados, QC MP. We're not going to take it down. We don't do that in a civilized country. Frondell and David Thompson have presided over a decline in the standards of governance, not just in corporations, not just in cabinet, but also in our parliament. To this day, it will be to our eternal shame that the Committee of Privileges has not been able to meet to conclude the matter of the charges that I laid against a man named David Eswick. Do you wonder why? Do you wonder why Parliament has been dissolved and that inquiry was never done? You see, as long as Parliament is dissolved, the charge that I brought against David Eswick is dead. A future Parliament cannot inquire into the charge that I made against David Eswick. So as far as Parliament goes, that gone through the others. That gone through the others. Well, I want the people in Lynette Eastman constituency to deal with David Eswick for me. Lynette, I want you to promise me that David Eswick will never again be able to walk into Parliament with a gun around his ankle, not because he will not have a gun, but because he will not walk into Parliament. Promise me that, Lynette. We have seen the vilest of conduct from the member for St. James South, one Donville Innes. Do you know that 3 weeks ago I got a letter from a lawyer named Junior Alsop telling me that I, Dale Marshall in Villa Road, libeled Donville Innes when I said that he made vile and offensive comments about William Duguid's wife and children. He wrote me and said that he wants damages and that I should let them know as soon as possible how much money I intend to pay. I believe he wants money to finance his campaign because Chris Sinclair is the man holding the money, and Chris Sinclair don't much like Donville, so Chris Sinclair ain't gonna get Donville a penny. He was hoping to collect from me. But my lawyer wrote him back and said, we do not like bluffers. Whatever thou doest, do it quickly. We wrote him back and told him so. And I am man enough to stand here again tonight and say, Donville Innes grossly and vilely disrespected William Duguid's wife and children. And he can file the High Court writ tomorrow because I have a whole opposition bench of witnesses who are able to say we heard him say so. And if that is not a hallmark of a decline, do you call that a pathway to progress? A pathway to progress? Where is the progress when this administration presides over the decline of our most noble of institutions? There was a time when we had giants in Parliament on both sides. We had the Henry Fords. We had the Errol Barristow. We had people of the caliber of Branford Tate and Richie Haynes and Bree St. John and Tom Adams. But what do we have today? I don't have to call the names for you. They're giving me delight. They're giving me delight. There are going to be many more meetings, and I will have the opportunity to more fully go into the other issues that I wanted to discuss with you, because I want to tell you that today, in the same way they presided over a decline in Parliament, that they have presided over a decline in the Royal Barbados Police Force. The force that we equipped with the finest equipment during our term, the police officers are now walking around with holes in their shoes and holes in the tunics and in the pants. They cannot get ammunition to practice on the shooting range. So we have police officers who, now if you don't have ammunition to practice on the range, I don't know what you do. Maybe you go to the range and lay down with the gun and say, pow, pow. I don't know. But if you have police officers who don't have ammunition to practice on the range to be able to defend themselves, then what is the force coming to? What is the force coming to? Let me, in my final words, say this. A week ago, you would have looked across Barbados and you would have seen Barbadians' faces drawn and haggard and weary. Weary of carrying the burden of taxation. Weary of a government who promised that cost of living would be reduced but by their very actions cause costs of living to be increased. You would have seen sad Barbadians a week ago. But tonight I want you to look to your neighbor on the left and to your neighbor on the right. And tell me if you don't begin to see a smile coming over their faces. When I walk through St. Joseph, I see a smile on the people in St. Joseph's faces. When I walk through St. Michael West, I see a smile. When I walk through the city, I see a smile. Up and down Barbados is smiling because they know a better tomorrow is coming. Good night and God bless.
We want BLP. Let's rebuild this economy. More jobs and opportunity. Them ain't doing nothing for me. We want BLP, cause we need a change. People want new government. Tell me what's the name? BLP. Everybody come follow me. We want BLP. BLP. This is the right thing for me. What do we need? BLP.
Dale Marshall, I will tell you something. I have not yet, I am not a parliamentarian, but if Donville